Maria Jackson never imagined her life would unravel this way. She grew up in a small town in Georgia, raised by a hard-working mother who always said, "We might not have much, but we have each other." Maria was a dreamer. She loved books, especially stories about people who overcame impossible odds. She believed her own life would be one of those stories. In college, she studied nursing, balancing late-night shifts at a diner and long hours of lectures. That was where she met Jacob, charming, ambitious, and full of promises. Their love story moved quickly. Within a year, they married. By the time Maria was 24, she was pregnant. At first, it felt like everything she had dreamed of: a family, stability, a future. But reality was not as kind as the fantasy. Jacob lost his job. Arguments escalated. He began disappearing for days, leaving Maria to pay bills she couldn't afford. And then one morning, he was simply gone. No note, no goodbye. Just silence. Maria tried to hold on. She worked as much as she could, carrying her baby to daycare, barely managing rent. But when her landlord grew tired of late payments, she was evicted. With nowhere to go and no family to turn to, she packed a small bag, clutched her baby, and boarded a bus to New York. She told herself, "If I can make it anywhere, it's here." But New York did not embrace her. Chapter 2, The Suit in the Rain. On a gray autumn afternoon, Maria sat on the sidewalk, her baby wailing in her arms. She rocked him desperately, whispering, "It's okay, sweet boy. Mommy's here. Don't cry." The cold seeped through her wet jeans. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but worse than hunger was helplessness. She looked at the passing strangers, men and women in coats, holding coffee cups, talking on phones, laughing with colleagues. None of them saw her. Until he did. David Miller, 62 years old, walked down the street in his tailored black suit. His silver hair was damp with rain, but he didn't rush. David was the kind of man people noticed: sharp, confident, successful. For 40 years, he had built an empire in real estate, skyscrapers that kissed the clouds. People bowed to his presence in boardrooms. Yet, despite all that, he often felt something missing. As he walked past the crying baby and the shivering woman, something tugged at his chest. He stopped. He turned back. Rain slid down his face as he looked at her. She glanced up, startled, her eyes filled with shame, fear, and hope all at once. "Do you need help?" His voice was low, almost hesitant. Maria blinked. She was used to pity, to whispers, to coins tossed in her direction without eye contact. But this man was different. He was talking to her, not at her. She clutched her baby tighter, unsure. Chapter 3, Clash of Worlds. David crouched down, ignoring the puddles that soaked his polished shoes. He opened the umbrella he had been carrying and held it over her and the baby. For Maria, it was surreal. A man in a $1,000 suit, kneeling on the dirty sidewalk, shielding her child from the rain. "You can't stay here," David said softly. "There's a place I know. Safe. Warm. They'll help you." Maria wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. She had seen kindness that came with conditions. She had been promised help that turned into exploitation. Still, her baby's cries pierced through her hesitation. She nodded slowly. David extended his hand. For a moment, Maria stared at it. Then, with trembling fingers, she reached out. Chapter 4, Shelter of Hope. David led her down the block, away from the endless foot traffic, to a modest brick building tucked between two taller ones. A sign above the door read, "Hope Haven Shelter." Inside, the air was warm, filled with the smell of soup and the sound of soft chatter. Volunteers moved quickly, distributing blankets, offering hot meals. Maria stepped in cautiously, holding her baby close. A young woman approached with a smile and handed her a towel. "You're safe here," the volunteer said kindly. Maria's eyes brimmed with tears. She had spent nights on benches, in subway stations, in doorways where shadows loomed. Safety had become a foreign concept. David stood by the entrance, watching. He wasn't one to interfere deeply in people's lives. Yet something about Maria reminded him of his late wife, her determination, her quiet strength even in pain. That night, for the first time in weeks, Maria slept under a roof. Her baby nestled beside her, finally quiet, his tiny chest rising and falling in peace. Chapter 5, Questions and Promises. The next morning, Maria awoke to find David sitting at a table near the shelter's kitchen, sipping coffee. He greeted her with a nod. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she whispered, adjusting her baby on her hip. He gestured for her to sit. After a long pause, he asked, "What's your name?" "Maria. And your son?" "Ethan." David smiled faintly. "Strong name." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the clinking of dishes in the kitchen. Finally, Maria spoke. "Why did you stop for me yesterday? People usually don't." David looked down at his cup. "Because I couldn't walk past you." "Not this time." Maria studied him, searching for hidden motives. But all she saw was sincerity. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of something she had nearly lost: hope. Over the next few days, Maria adjusted to life at the shelter. She had a warm bed, meals, and volunteers who helped her with Ethan. Yet she couldn't shake the weight of her past. The memory of Jacob's betrayal, the eviction, the endless nights on cold concrete, they clung to her like shadows. David visited often. At first, Maria thought it strange. Why would a wealthy man spend time in a shelter? But she learned that his company had sponsored Hope Haven for years. Most executives wrote checks and stayed away, but David came in person, though rarely. Something about Maria had drawn him back more than usual. One morning, as they sat across from each other, David asked gently, "What did you want to be, before all this?" Maria hesitated. "A nurse. I was in training. I wanted to help people, too, to make sure no one felt invisible." David leaned back, thoughtful. "Do you still want that?" Maria's eyes flickered with doubt. "I don't know if it's possible anymore." He looked at her steadily. "What if it is? Chapter 7, Trials and Struggles. Encouraged by David, Maria applied for a re-entry program at a local nursing school. It wasn't easy. She had gaps in her record, no money for tuition, and a baby to care for. But David offered to cover the costs, not as charity, but as an investment. "I believe in second chances," he told her. Maria accepted, though pride made it difficult. She promised herself she would earn every bit of the help she received. Life became a whirlwind. By day, Maria attended classes. By night, she worked part-time at a diner, leaving Ethan with volunteers at the shelter. Exhaustion was constant. Sometimes she sat on the subway with her head nodding, tears slipping down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "You can't give up. Not now." There were setbacks. Ethan fell sick with the flu one winter, forcing Maria to miss exams. Bills for his medicine piled up. Doubt returned like an unwelcome guest. Yet, each time she felt herself sinking, David reminded her of her strength. "You've come too far to stop," he said. "Keep going." Chapter 8, Lessons in Resilience. Years passed. Maria completed her nursing degree, graduating with honors. The day she held her certificate, Ethan, now 5 years old, sat in the front row, clapping his small hands proudly. After the ceremony, Maria found David waiting outside. For the first time, she allowed herself to cry openly, tears of triumph instead of despair. "You did it," David said, his voice thick with emotion. "No," Maria replied, shaking her head. "We did it." David chuckled softly. "No, Maria. You were the one who never stopped fighting." Chapter 9, A Different Kind of Wealth. Maria's first job was at St. Luke's Hospital. Her days were long and demanding, but she felt alive. Every patient reminded her why she had chosen this path: to bring comfort, to heal, to listen. She rented a small apartment, painted the walls soft blue, and gave Ethan his own room filled with books and toys. It wasn't much compared to others, but to Maria, it was a palace. Meanwhile, David's life changed too. For decades, he had measured success in profits and properties. But through Maria, he learned that true wealth wasn't money, it was impact. He began spending less time in boardrooms and more time expanding shelters, scholarships, and community programs. One evening, as they walked through Central Park, Maria asked him, "Why did you choose me, that day in the rain?" David smiled faintly. "Because I saw a fighter. And because, maybe I needed saving too." Chapter 10, Full Circle. 10 years later, Maria was no longer the woman shivering on a sidewalk. She was Nurse Jackson, respected at her hospital, known for her compassion. Ethan was a bright teenager, dreaming of college. On a rainy evening, eerily similar to the night her life had changed, Maria passed a young woman sitting on the sidewalk with a child. Her heart clenched. She approached, knelt down, and offered her umbrella. "Do you need help?" she asked softly. The woman looked up, startled, just as Maria once had. At that moment, Maria realized life had come full circle. The kindness that had lifted her from despair was now hers to give. Epilogue. Some stories are about heroes in capes, battles won, or fortunes made. But Maria's story was about something quieter, something stronger: resilience, compassion, and the power of one human being to change another's destiny. She had once been invisible on the streets of New York. Now, she stood as a reminder that no one is truly lost as long as someone stops, notices, and says, "Do you need help?"